Hi, I'm your host, Andrew Leong, and welcome to #Ambitious. #Ambitious is all about business, startups, and growth. I interview people about their businesses, their professions, their journey, their struggles, and how they're growing. In this episode, we have Dave Cottrell, mindset coach and founder of Mindset by Dave. I really love this podcast episode because of how truthful and open Dave is. Dave is a big guy. He looks like he could run through walls, and he probably could. However, Dave has suffered his own battles with mental health, which has led him to his purpose of helping others through his coaching. So let's jump right in. Dave, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I've been wanting to do this with you for a while, so I do appreciate it so much.
It's my pleasure.
So Dave, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business?
Okay, so my main business now is mindset coaching. For the last few years, I've been a personal trainer and doing mindset as part of it, which tends to be the cycle that a lot of people go through right now. There's this big thing about mindset is everything in the personal training industry and the nutrition industry. But I got a bit more obsessed with it and I didn't want it just to be, oh, right, mindset is everything. And then people go, oh, cool, what do you know about mindset? And me go, that it's everything, which tends to be what was going on in a lot in the industry. But I got a little, if I'm, completely honest, once I started doing the mindset stuff and learned several techniques there, and that was like for my own reasons at first, like for my own mental health. I started seeing that with the training and nutrition, you get training, you can get changes with someone in a month, couple of months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it may be. Nutrition, you start to see those like real important changes sort of again, 3-6 months. With mindset stuff, you could do it within like minutes, and once you'd got someone's story, once you'd understood where they were coming from, if you knew the right technique, you can make a massive shift in that person in a space of minutes. And I got a little bit hooked on that. And at the time, I was studying a nutrition degree, because I was like, I am going to be this PT that's going to change the world of personal training and nutrition. And I'm not just going to be the person who gets his level 3 PT and then just stops there. It's like, I'm going to get the degree. I'm going to know everything about nutrition and all the rest of it. And I thought to myself, kind of like this office that we're sat in right now, nice, well-lit office, a few nice decorations, maybe a nice plant, bit of natural light. And I'll sit there and do personalized nutrition plans. And then when on my nutrition degree, when I went away, we went away for like sort of a couple of week course on mindset, and I was just like, this is it. I said, like, something switched in my head, and I was like, I cannot see myself in that office anymore. And I was all set to do a nutrition seminar at my gym 2 weeks later. And I just said to my mentor at the time, I was like, I don't want to do it on nutrition anymore. He's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, mindset. He's like, you've just spent the last 2 months writing this nutrition seminar and you've got 2 weeks. I'm like, yeah, I can do it. And he's like, well, I don't think you should. And I was like, well, tough, I'm doing it. And I went and did it. And it went really, really well. Like, I loved it. So what I do now, off the back of that, I just got more and more into the mindset work. And originally it was like, oh, I'll carry on working as a personal trainer. I'll put the mindset work in as a bonus. And then it became, obviously, the mindset work I was doing was all around eating disorders or comfort eating or just weight loss in general. And I was like, I don't just want to work with that. I have type 2 bipolar disorder myself, so I wanted to work more with mental health. I wanted to help people with anxiety. I wanted to help people with depression. I wanted to help people who are suicidal, but I also wanted to help people with procrastination and with all the rest of it. And I know that the clearer and more focused you can be with a business model, like I am the mindset specialist for eating disorders, that would grow faster and be easier for people to get on board with. But I was just like, no, I want to do this and I want to work with everyone. Whatever is holding them back in their mind, I want to do that. And that's what I do now.
They're all interlinked though, aren't they? So if you were to specialise, you're kind of missing. So if you, let's say you have depression, but you might also have OCD as well, or you might have anxiety, which might lead to procrastination. So it's good that you do arrange, I would say, from my perspective anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think if someone wanted to specialise in mindset coaching, if they put themselves out there as being a stress coach, stress is the underpinning issue in so many anxiety situations, so so many depression situations, so many eating disorders, so much alcohol addiction, so much drug addiction. So much of it, like that would be one of the most common things that comes up. So I guess if someone wanted to go niche with it and said that I am a stress management specialist, because again, stress is something that everyone relates to having. There's not as much of a stigma attached to stress as there is attached to mental health as well. So someone who's like got a high stress job but doesn't consider themselves to have poor mental health might still put their hand up and say, yeah, I've got stress. I've got a stressful job. So I think one of the most common links there is that, now I'm not saying if anyone who's got anxiety or depression who's listening to this thing's always boiling it down to just stress. No, it's not just that. However, it's certainly not mitigating, the opposite, a contributing factor. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you think of every condition being made up of multiple kind of building blocks, stress is one of the most common ones in all of them. Mm-hmm. And you help someone manage the stress. You might not cure depression, you might not cure anxiety, but you certainly limit it, hold it back, minimize it.
Okay. I've noticed that I can't decide whether people are becoming more open about mental health and mental ill health and what they go through, or whether the times we live in are so fast that it's causing it, or maybe it's a bit of both. What's your opinion on that at the moment? Yeah,
I'm definitely of the opinion that there's a bit of both. I follow the statistics because one of my ridiculously lofty goals in life is to positively impact mental health within the UK. I worked out that you'd need to help 1,792.3 people a day every single day of the year to impact it by 1%. This is what I mean about I'm a bit of a geek with the statistics. Last year, I think it was, for the first time ever, male suicide actually dropped for the first time since the 80s, which was really nice to see. I can't remember what the exact percentage was it dropped by. It was quite a small percent, but it was the first time it had dropped. And there is a constant debate about whether or not we're becoming more open about it. There is more mental health issues, or we're just talking about them more. Social media highlights so much that is already there. And it is creating a space for more people to talk about it. I still think the actual statistics are actually ones that are released are lower than what the real statistics are, particularly because blokes, we're the culprits in this one. We don't talk about our mental health. We don't admit it. We'd I talked about being bipolar in the answer to my first question on this podcast, and I'm not bothered. I will admit that as readily as I will admit that I'm a Liverpool fan. It's like, it's just part of who I am, and I'm not embarrassed about it. So it's like, but not everyone is there yet, and it's going to be a while before everyone is there. So I think the actual statistics are even worse, which is a bit doom and gloom, but at the same time, there's more and more coming along to help people with it, which again is a little bit of a double-edged sword actually, because some of it, it's like its intention is to help, but does it help? And that's some of the stuff that I'm spending my time thinking about at the minute. Like, for example, I've recently had someone recommend an AI app called Wobot to me, and you have a chat with this app, and you tell it what you're feeling, and the AI is built into the app to give you some solutions for how you're feeling. Like, here's some stress management, here's some anxiety management. It's great. The thing is, in my opinion at least anyway, one of the big things that's driving the increase in anxiety, the increase in depression, is a decrease in real connection. And to me, even though that app might be perfect for someone who would not normally connect, it may also push someone who's on the fringe of, I really want to talk to someone, but I'm not sure. It might push them in the direction of a robot, of an AI, of an app, rather than in the direction of human interaction, which I personally think, obviously I don't have data to back this up or anything, but I personally think long term, the long tail on that will be, we're almost I know there are many people that find it hard for social interaction, but we're enabling that more now with technology and things like that. So there's so much going on that it's very difficult to sit down and say that any one thing is contributing to it, because something like that, the people who designed that app probably think this is brilliant. We've identified this group of people over there that won't talk to a person. There are text services with the Samaritans. A lot of people don't know that. It's like, you can text the Samaritans. You don't just have to speak to them if you are socially awkward or if you are socially anxious. But again, it's like, are these things causing more harm than good? Because really what you want that person to do is learn to like interact a little bit more to overcome that, because actually overcoming that, increasing their comfort zone in terms of the social situations they can find themselves in, could be a very good long-term solution for that person. It's not easy. It's by far not the easier option. The easier option is to text the person, or the easier option, as many of us would do, is to do absolutely nothing at all. But that's only easier in the short term. The long tail of that is, for example, if I was to shut myself off because I'm stressed, which I actually did this weekend, it's like I shut myself off from everyone. Short term, that was good for me, but I don't want that to become my long-term strategy, because that's how a bloke becomes isolated. We go, okay, I'm going to cancel that. Oh, I feel better for cancelling that. I'm going to cancel these 6 other things too, because if I felt better from cancelling that. We've got to think critically about this stuff and think in terms of, right, the solution that I've got now, is it a short-term solution? Is it a long-term solution? Do I need a bit of both? That was a really tangential answer to what you asked, wasn't it?
No, it's a really good answer. I actually totally agree with you, because I have my own mental health or ill health sometimes with my anxieties, and I've noticed that there's periods where I need to just rest and recuperate, and that just means locking myself away for a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's not the strategy I want long term. I want to go out and meet people, and I do want to go to parties, and I do want to have meetings with people, and I want to meet new people. But I totally agree with you. You don't want to start going down a route where you protect yourself and you're basically staying in bed for the rest of your life, because you're lowering the quality of your life.
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree with everything you've just said there. So I'm really interested in your business and your services. So when you think of a PT or as a gym PT, you kind of know what you're getting, don't you? You're going to go through a program, and then they'll probably put you on a diet and stuff like that. But how does it work with yourself?
I wish there was an easy answer to that question. I really wish there was, because it's so funny. It's like people just message me so often saying, what is mindset coaching? And I do have one stock answer for it, but it's still not it's not the right answer. I'd rather ask that person one question back and say, well, what is it that you feel you need help with? Because the thing is, it's like, my principle now, I have 2 different principles that I suppose I'm beginning to sort of tie it in. The first principle is I call the 3 A's. Which is awareness of alternatives and accountability. Now, regardless of what problem the person comes to me, I don't even like the word problem, regardless of what issue the person comes to me with, we start with that. We start with awareness, which is, right, let's be fully aware of what the actual issue is. So if a person comes to me and they've got binge eating disorder, for example, it's like I would look at not just the what, which is I eat food, like I eat this food uncontrollably, whatever, but I look at the why. And rather than asking the question why, I start with what's the positive intent? What positive thing do you get out of this? And the person will probably say, well, it relieves stress, or it gives me a feeling of control, or it gives me this feeling of comfort, whatever it may be. And that's our awareness, is we start off by finding out what the current behavior, because even with anxiety and depression, there are behaviors. When I'm depressed, I wallow. When I'm anxious, I think too much about everything that's going on, and I don't break it down and all the rest of it. So there are behaviors going on. It's not just, there are chemical imbalances, there are a lot of factors, but there are also how we do these things. So we get awareness around how we do that thing. And then we go into alternatives, because that awareness shows us what we're trying to get out of the situation. Someone beats themselves up in the head and is self-critical. Well, the awareness of what they're trying to get out of that is to do more. And as you know from being a perfectionist, as we talked about before we started recording, that self-criticalness doesn't always push us in the direction of doing more. It often pushes in the direction of doing less. It's like, so, okay, what are we trying to get out of this? If someone's trying to get comfort out of food, if someone's trying to get stress relief out of food, so much of these behaviors are what I call a boomerang. And a boomerang is you throw it forward, it comes whipping back. You get the positive intent short term. The person's like, right, I'll go and have a couple of drinks after work. I'll get stress relief after that. And then you have the drinks, and you get that whole, the stresses of the world have gone away. But then later on, all the stresses that were there before are still there. And now you've got the additional stress of your body trying to clear the alcohol. Depends how much you drink, really. But you've also maybe got the additional emotional stress of, I can't believe I turned to beer or spirits or wine or whatever it may be to deal with my stress again. Same with food. I can't believe I turned to that. Same with beating yourself up about things. It's like all of these things, they may feel like they're causing a positive in the short term, and they've got these positive intentions for you, but they're giving you this negative long term. And it's often we confuse it for that. Like, think about putting money on a credit card. It's like, I've got money, I've got an extra $4,000 limit on my credit card over there, so I've got an extra $4,000. It's like, no, you don't. It gives us the illusion of something we can spend, but then the repercussions are coming back later on. And the same is true with binge eating, the same is true with drinking, drug use, all of those things. They all have positive short terms. Someone who eats, it's like they have a positive short term of about 10 seconds. At first, maybe 10 minutes, but over time, it's like, okay, I've eaten that food now, and now I've got all the stress plus a nice little sliver of self-loathing on top of that, so I actually feel more stressed. Then what happens is the person wakes up the next morning, they're a little bit closer to that stress threshold, and then it builds up to the same level, and they stop a little bit earlier. It's like, okay, now I'm going to binge, I'm going to have a snack mid-afternoon that I wasn't planning to do. With drinking, doesn't tend to do that because people are in work and they're not about to carry a little hip flask of gin into the office. Some people possibly even do. But what happens is that stress builds up. Now, we start with that. That's the awareness, understanding the reason behind you doing it. Because you get the positive reason. You say to someone who's addicted to heroin, what's the positive that they're getting out of that? It's not about the fact that they're a useless druggie like they've been told by countless other people who've judged them and not helped them get anywhere. So, okay, the positive is escapism. Whatever it may be, their life might be so painful that they're trying to escape from that pain, and that's the only way they know to do it. Then the second step is alternatives. We go to, right, how else can we scratch that same itch? What more healthy way can we scratch that itch? If you're looking for stress relief from food, what is the healthy alternative? What are 10 healthy alternatives? Ironically, I call this the takeout menu. Like, it's even for people who've got eating disorders. Once we talk about why it's called that, it becomes apparent. I'm not just trying to make them want to take out. But the thing is, what I get everyone to do at that point is I get them to write their alternative list. Here are the alternatives that will help me meet this same goal, but without the negative repercussions. And that'll be with any of those same issues. And then they write this list. Now, the reason I call it a takeout menu is because, again, if you've got a lot of work to do, you know what a to-do list can do to you. It can motivate, but it can also make you think, if I don't get all of that done, then I've failed. If someone writes a self-care list that is 20 items long and they don't get through all 20 of them in a day, they'll then think about themselves as a failure. Their actual self-care becomes a stress in itself. Now, we don't do that when we go to a takeout menu. The takeout menu is not like, we don't go to that and go, right, I'm going to go through this with like a little marker pen, highlight every single one as I go through it, and I'm going to tick off the whole menu. We go to it and go, well, what do I fancy doing today? And on there might be 10 minutes of meditation. On there might be go out for a walk. On there might be cuddle with the dogs. Whatever it may be, do some crafts, watch some stand-up comedy, have some sex. It's like, if you can, if your partner's on board with your self-care menu. But you look at that and you go, well, which of these do I fancy doing? It's not, I've got to do the whole lot, otherwise I'm not taking care of myself. Now, in that moment, when a person wants to do the initial behavior, the brain doesn't think about these things. It's like, you don't go, okay, I'm going to stop now and think about the alternative and it'll be that easy. I say that so much of what I teach is simple, but it's not easy. Because when we think it's going to be easy, well, actually that goes into accountability. So I'll come back to that thought in a second. I'll finish off on the takeout menu. So we pick something from there because your brain might not be ready to engage. You might be dying for that glass of wine. You might be dying for that packet of crisps or whatever it may be. And your brain's not thinking about the alternatives. So I get the person to put that list in front of wherever the wine is or wherever the food is or on their bathroom mirror or somewhere they're going to see it. And then they look at it. And because they've come up with that list, a little bit like Inception, they're more likely to do it. It has to be their list. It's not my list. I made a load of suggestions then. Some of them might end up on your list, but if meditation doesn't float your boat, it doesn't have to. It's like, but we need something. It doesn't need to look like Dave's, it doesn't need to look like Andrew's, it doesn't need to look like Jane's or Sally down the road. It doesn't need to look like anybody else's, but it needs to be something. So that person looks at that list and they go, right, okay, I'm going to choose this. Now, this is where the accountability side of it comes in. It's simple, but not easy, right? So at that point, what the person's going to do, if they have managed to avoid the binge or avoid the alcohol or avoid the social disconnection or whatever it may be, or, avoid the YouTube binge, because that is a behavior a lot of people want to change these days, their tendency there is to go, oh, right, well, it's only one day. Well, so what? What's that going to achieve in the grand scheme of things? And the person beats themselves up. Some people can get through 95% of it and still focus on the 5% failure rather than the 95% success. Some people can get through all the 100% of it and go, oh, I still could have done better. And that type of self-talk, it's like you wouldn't hire me to be a personal critic. You wouldn't hire me to just come along and tell you everything you're doing wrong, because you don't need to. You've got one of them 24/7 inside your head. It berates us. It's like a child learning to walk. When it goes to take its first steps, we don't go over, run along, slide and tackle it to the floor and say, don't bother doing that till you make it across the whole floor. We cheer it on, we big it up, and we need to do the same to ourselves. Because I'd love to say we've grown up, and we have in certain areas, but the part of our brain that wants to be told good job and actually motivate us to do more things, that's not grown up at all. It's still a little child. It's still looking for parental support or a teacher or whatever it may be. And those people aren't around anymore. They think you've grown up and you can look after yourself now. And that is kind of true. But we've not learned how to yet. So I call it the world's worst business model. I try and train my clients to be dependent on themselves as quick as humanly possible. If they're still dependent on me in 6 months, I've not done my job right. Sometimes I feel if they're not still dependent on me in 3 months, I've not done my job right. So the accountability part of it is, right, we celebrate every little victory of that. Because if we trip the child up, it doesn't go back and take the next step. And if we chip the child up in our head, we don't go on. You're going out to try and run. You run one day and you go, it was only half a K or whatever. It was only 2 minutes. It's like when you say it was only 2 minutes, you don't go out for the 3 minutes the next day. But if you go, yes, 2 minutes, I'm so happy with myself, like doing dance, an 80s reach and grab, it's like whatever it may be, an actual physical pat on the back, you reinforce it. You tell yourself, the thing I just did was a good thing, and therefore you go back and you do more of it. The child goes back to the couch, it climbs up, it takes 2 steps, it takes 10 steps, and lo and behold, we're all walking adults, and it works. So that's the super long answer. The super short version is know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Choose alternative reasons to meet that why. And then every single step of progress you take towards it, celebrate the crap out of it. There we go.
Awesome.
I go on rants sometimes.
No, I loved it. I actually learned a lot from that then. I was looking at your website and you have a life a day, which is really interesting. I just wonder if you could tell us all about that. Okay.
At the moment, a life a day is the most exhausting thing in my life because I got far too eager with it. It's my own fault. 3 years ago, while I was doing my degree, I came up with this. I had this idea floating around in my head. I like to get people to ask themselves specific questions. So if someone says, why can't I get them to replace it with, how could I? It's like, why can't I leads to all the reasons you can't. How could I leads to all the ways in which you could. And I adopt most of, not all of, the stuff that I actually teach people, like for my own life. And I asked myself, how could I help more people? Helping more people is my drug. I'll be honest with it. I'm addicted to it. It's a problem. I should probably seek help. But I was helping a certain number of people through PT, and I was helping a certain number of people through mindset. But I wanted to help way more than that. And I was like, right, how could I help more people than this? So I thought, well, and this phrase started going around in my head, is a life a day. I'm like, what the hell is that? But it was just going around in my head. I'm like, okay, one life every single day. Could I make it possible to positively impact one life on average? It was originally supposed to be one a day, which is borderline impossible, but not impossible. And it started off last year. I thought I finally got the capacity to do it once the degree was all over and done with. And I was like, I've got the capacity to do it now, and I'm going to start it. And it started off with like buying the person in line behind me a coffee, or like running out and getting coffees for the people I was training with before we trained, or giving a free PT session to one of my existing clients. I offered out sort of maybe 5 mindset coaching sessions a month. And it was a really long, like slow build up. By the end of, the idea was to do one a day. By the end of February 2018, I'd done 30 of them. So I was halfway there. And then I went away for 3 weeks to Australia, and I came back. Are you familiar with Ben Coomber? Do you know?
No.
He runs one of the biggest in the UK health and fitness podcasts. He was one of my mentors, and one of the reasons I got into this in the first place. He's got a massive audience, and I said to him, to the coaching community, to the BTN coaches, which is like, he trains nutritionists. I was like, can I offer this out to them? And he's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, you're going to get a lot of response on this. I'm like, it's fine. And I said to him, like, I'm just going to offer it. as 1-to-1 hour of mindset coaching, because rather than it being, does anyone need a random act of kindness? Because that's how I was doing it originally. It's like, does anyone need me to come around and flip a mattress or something? It's like, I'll do it. I'll come and take your bins out for you. I'll make you a casserole. You know, that was one of the things I did. One of my clients had just given birth. I made her a casserole so she didn't have to worry about food for a couple of days. And that was how it all started. And then once Ben pushed it out, I think I had something like 60 requests in 2 days. And I managed to get 40 of them done. Was it? No, it wasn't quite 40 of them. There was 1 month where I did 62, I think. Like, so on average 2 a day. Wow. And yeah, that was May. So that was just after he did that. So I did 62 of them in May. And then by the end of June, I was caught up, and I thought, you know what, if people know what it is and I'm clear about it, because as you're listening to this podcast, you might see that I give really long answers. If I'm nice and clear and succinct about it, if I just say an hour of free mindset coaching, and that's what it is, and it doesn't have to be 5 of them a month or whatever, it can be just book one in and we'll do it. And then as soon as it became clear, it picked up a lot faster. I got on Ben's podcast, I put it out to that, which is like 2,500 people that listened to it. I ended up on 3 other podcasts off the back of that, and by the 3rd one, I was like, they were like, well, tell us about a life a day. I'm like, I can't, it's closed. Like and by November the 20th, I had hit all 365 of them.
Wow.
And but I already knew by the midpoint of the year, I'm like, I'm doing this again next year. And I committed to doing it for 3 years, and I'm beginning to regret that, but I don't go back on my commitments. So I'm just going to have to manage it better. And what it was, basically, once it became well-defined, it was, I will give you an hour of mindset coaching for free with 3 promises. Promise number 1 was, it's not a way into a sales funnel. You don't even have to like my Instagram page or my Facebook page. You don't have to give me your email address, none of that. You just send me we chat through Facebook video messenger. We have a full hour. You're not required to do anything. You don't have to tell anyone about it. You don't have to do anything. It was completely free. No sales funnel. There wasn't even products to sell at that point. And the second one is completely confidential. Talking about mindset and mental health, it's a little bit more personal than just weight loss and stuff like that. So I didn't want people to think I was doing this just to research, get sort of topics for blog posts and all the rest of it. And the third thing was, I wouldn't hold back. And that only came in the middle of the year when I realized that actually, you know what, one of the biggest benefits of doing it was I got really, really good at what I do. Because it's funny how doing an extra 365 hours of practice on your craft makes you better. Who'd have thought? It's like, and then I said, right, no holding back. I'm not going to give you, because a lot of people were like, well, you're just going to give them the preview so that they break rule number 1 and they come back for more sessions. I'm like, no, I'm going to try and help them as much as humanly possible in that hour. Because as I said to you before, 1,792.3, I think I've got that number wrong this time. That's how many people I'd need to help every single day and it's not about me personally bloody impacting it, but if that's what needs to be done if mental health is going to change. So I was like, right, I can't spend hours and hours and hours with every single person. I have to go in and make as much of an impact as possible. And then the relaunch of it this year, which is currently going, and is currently on about number 140, I think. I haven't updated the sheet for a while, and it's the beginning of March, and that's where I went wrong. Last year, no one knew who I was. Last year, everyone was questioning it, hence the rules came in. It's like, look, it's completely free, it's completely confidential, I can promise you this, I haven't broke. As it went through the year, more and more people believed that promise. I was like, look, I'd have been called out on social media by now, because I'm making this promise, and I actually encourage people that if I break that promise to call me a fraud, and to go out there and slap me, punch me in the face, or slag me off on social media, or all of the above if they want. And it became a lot easier. And then by the time I relaunched it on December the 30th, like last year, I relaunched it in preparation for January the 1st. My profile's a lot bigger this year as a result of it. 100 of them went in within 2 days. And so I had bookings from then. I mean, some of the bookings I've got for next week were done then, because people are like, I need an evening slot, and the evening slots go super quick. But that's where it is now, and that's why it's kind of like, I think if I went past 135, that means in total I've done over 500 of them, which is ridiculous when I think about it. But when I said about the 62, in January, I set myself the goal of beating that 62. And I thought, I'll go to like 64 or 65. I went to 83 in 1 month, alongside my paid work, and alongside being a dad, and alongside like the PT work, and alongside my own bloody fitness goals. And it was a really bad idea. So it's still there. I'm tapering the rate at which I'm giving out the sessions at the minute. Otherwise, I'll be done in June. And it's coming back. Sorry, the difference this year is it's called a Life a Day Pay It Forward, which is there's a fourth request. It's not a rule. The rules on me are there and can't be broken. The fourth one is a request for the person speaking to me, which is, again, I asked myself the question, how can I make this even better next year? And the answer that came back was I can request that every single person that does it pays it forward, which means to do something nice for free for somebody else. And I don't turn up at their house and demand an hour of my life back if they don't do it, because it's a request for them. But I do strongly encourage every single person to do it for two reasons. One, it's really nice for the person that's receiving the thing. But two, it's impossible to do that nice thing without feeling good about it yourself. And then the next year's one, the one that I've already committed to, is called A Life a Day, It Takes a Village, which my plan for that is I've worked with a lot of coaches through all of this. I've helped a lot of coaches with their clients. I'm going to call in a few favors. Be warned. All you coaches that I've helped, there is a reason. You're not required to, but I'm hoping that a lot of the coaches that I've helped will actually then say, you know what, I'm going to give away a couple of sessions each month, or I'm going to give away 5 sessions or 10 sessions, whatever it may be, 1+. You know, it's like, even if someone says, right, I'll give away 1 session in the middle of June or something, it's better than nothing. And I want to try and get as many people who took part in the first 2 years to say, right, how can we take this even further?
That's a lot of work. I was thinking, as you were talking so you got your business, which is a stress in itself,
yep,
and pressure in itself, and then you're helping all these people with their opportunities to improve themselves and get a stronger mindset, or I'm not sure that's the right phrase, but you understand where I'm going.
Yeah.
So how are you managing your own mindset in all this, in this war zone?
I mean, I really wish you'd have asked me that question a week ago rather than today. Today, actually, I'm all right. Last week, I full on hit burnout. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I put a post up on my Instagram yesterday saying, if you're looking for a coach who's got it together 100% of the time, keep scrolling. I'm not that person. I have it together the vast majority of the time now. And I seriously wish people could see videos of me like 8 years ago before I started looking after my own mental health. I just lie in the fetal position on the couch crying all day, maybe plucking up the courage to play Call of Duty for a little while occasionally. My kids would look after me and took me up in a blanket while I was there bawling my eyes out. So I have come a hell of a long way from them. And now, a lot of times it's about being proactive. There's 2 things. One is being proactive with your mental health. So looking after it before you need to, which I am about 70% good at. So it's like, and then the 30% of the time I'm like, oh crap, missed them. Like guess I'm burning out. And then the mistake I've made over the last few weeks is I'd be like, oh, I'm burning out, I need half a day off. And because I start at like 6 in the morning and finish at 10 at night some nights. And even though I have gaps in the middle of that, you don't fully, like my last one tonight's 9 till 10. I won't switch off until 10:01, you know, and even then I'm quite alert. Alert? I don't know where that came from. Alert and awake mixed together. But yeah, all of it's my own doing. So I don't sit there and think I'm badly done to or anything. But being proactive with it and saying, okay, I know that's coming up, therefore I should dial back here. Or I know that's coming up, so maybe I should drop that there. I've got this course. Now this year, the reason it got tough is because rule number 1 is in place, I don't sell to any of those people. So many of them this year have loved what's happened on that first call so much that they've come back on as additional clients. I also have another company that I do a bit of work with called the 80/20 Lifestyle Plan. That's pushing a lot of clients over my way as well. So my paid business increased at the same time as me thinking, oh, I can fit these sessions in. So that was just poor scheduling, and I've fixed that now, and I've seen that was a problem, and looking forward, my schedule's nowhere near as bad. And I need to be a little more proactive with that. But the other one I say is that it's like being in a swimming pool, and sometimes you're in the shallow end. And if you're in the shallow end, you can stand on a little box of self-care and your head can be above the water. And like a little bit of self-care is all you need, you know, getting your sleep, making sure you eat well, like that, and that's all you really need. But then when you go into the deep end, when things get tough, which happens with bipolar disorder, which happens with booking yourself up to high heavens, when things get tough, that same box is only going to help you get towards the surface. And when you're underneath the surface, it doesn't matter if you're under the water by 1 inch or 10 foot. You're under the water. You can't breathe. So even if you're this close to the surface and you can't breathe, you think all this self-care is not working. And I'll have to have that conversation with myself and say, no, it is working. It's just getting you part of the way there. We need to do a bit more. So for this weekend, for example, I started taking a little half day off here and there to try and stop with the burnout. And all it'd do is it'd lower the temperature slightly, and then I'd be back to boiling over 2 days later. And I was convinced I can just power through it, which is exactly the opposite of what I'd tell anyone else to do. So this is what I said. Majority of the time, I follow my own advice. This was a time that I needed to. So I've cut back on a couple of responsibilities. And I've basically given myself permission. Some huge part about it is when you're actually having time off, give yourself permission to have that time off. Because if you're there thinking constantly, I've got to be doing something else, I've got to be doing something else, you're not actually having time off. So a little bit extra self-care, a little bit of compassion to myself, a little bit of extra rest, a little bit of extra recovery, making sure I ate well, communicating with the people around me and saying, look, I'm struggling right now. I don't actually feel like I need to talk about these things. I just need some space, because sometimes it's like you need the space, sometimes you need to talk, having the right balance of that. But yeah, it'll get there, and it's a constant learning experience. Which I think that for the people who do like what I do, that's what makes one of the things that makes them like me, because I'm not this person that's standing up on a big stage saying like, oh, okay, I sorted all of my crap out, you should too. I'm like, okay, I'm working this life thing out as much as you are as we go along. I maybe have a few more tools than what you've got at the minute. Let me help you with those tools.
I really love that. You mentioned some things that are very vulnerable, which I think is a very strong thing. But just so the listeners know, how tall are you?
6'3".
You're 6'3". You're a big strapping lad.
105 kilos, or like 18 stone or whatever that is.
So what I love about it is, if you were to look at you, you would never think you would have any issues in life. Yeah. And I just think it's really important that people know it's not what you look like, it's not who you are. Doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. We all have our thing at some point, and so that's really, really good. One thing I'm really interested in, and I think when you were talking about a lot of the stuff you've kind of delved into your marketing, but I'm really interested in how you market yourself and how you market your business. I think it's really, really good from what I've seen. I really, really like it, and that's how we met, because I saw you promoted a video, and I've watched it about 50 times. I absolutely love it. But for those who don't know, could you just tell us a little bit about your marketing and what you're putting out there? Because I think it's brilliant. Yeah,
my marketing's never a sales pitch. Like, okay, maybe never. I don't like the word never. My marketing is very, very rarely a sales pitch. I'm a big believer in giving content. I mean, I'm obviously bloody giving out an hour of my life to 365 people each year. That was an interesting question last year. Someone said, well, what happens when you get to 365? Well, you just keep going. And everyone thought I would. And I had to draw a line in the sand on it, which was an odd experience. But I like to give things away. I like to give value. The video, was it the You Are Not Weak one? Yes. You Are Not Weak, the journey is just difficult. I like to make those videos. They cost me an arm and a leg to make and promote, but I don't take anything from them. Like I've got I've got a video, a 2-minute long one, which is sort of on Instagram, but it's not because it's 2 minutes. Which promotes a life a day. It's like I don't take any money off a life a day, but I put money into that. Essentially, my marketing, and I'll be fully transparent with everyone that's listening, my marketing is a long-term thing. I am much more interested in providing you with value, giving you things, helping you, giving you stuff that you can share with your friends, giving you stuff that helps your friends, helps your family, helps you to understand your situation a bit better. And hopefully, one day if I'm doing a seminar in your area, you'll come along and grab a ticket, or you might come along and actually have coaching if you need it, if you feel like you need something beyond. But I'm not there to just I'm not playing the short game on any of this stuff. Like a life a day is not a short game thing. It's like I will probably have something else in place for it as soon as the 2021's done. So my idea is to essentially win your hearts and minds, but I think it's an interesting one, because I always struggle with that idea. It's like, well, everyone's just doing it for attention. Am I just doing all of that for attention? It's like, yeah, if I'm perfectly honest, I'm doing all of that for attention. But, the difference is what I want to do with that attention. With that attention, I don't just want to sell you something. I don't want to get rich quick off selling you like a waist trainer or some skinny tea or something that doesn't work. I want to give you something. For your attention, I want to reward your attention with something that will help you. And that You Are Not Weak video, I'm not sure if you've seen the You Are Enough one. That's another one that's not on Instagram because it's 4 minutes, 20 seconds long. But those videos, I know people who use them as their mantra for getting started on the day. I know people, I got a message of this actually this morning from someone who I used to just walk past in the gym. We said hi a few times, and she messaged me this morning saying, like, just so you know, I've watched your stuff for like the last 3 years, and I've always been too busy just to reach out and say, you've helped me get through certain days. That's why I do it. Yeah. And I would rather pay, £250, £500 to put in front of you something that gives you something than something that asks something of you.
Fantastic. You've got a really soothing voice, and I was just wondering, you got your podcast as well, so I know you're putting out audio content. I was just thinking then, are you going to write a book about anything? Are you going to have an audio book? Are you going to do any meditation type stuff? You just got a really soothing voice, and I just wondered...
Probably all of the above. I've already written a book, a fiction book. It's called The 11th Hour. It can be bought on Amazon. Not first hand anymore because the publishers pulled it because it wasn't selling. Which is funny because when that got released 7 years ago, it was before I knew like how to market anything. I've sold more copies of it since being a mindset coach than I ever did as an author. It's quite ironic, really. But because the authors have pulled this, or the publishers have pulled it, that returns the rights to me. So I'm making that into an audiobook because I have all the equipment to record that. It'll all be in my own voice. And so I'm looking forward to doing that. It's just one of those projects that's going to take me quite a while. Actually, won't take me too long once I sit down and do it. So yeah, that's definitely something that I will be doing. In terms of meditations, my podcast at the minute was supposed to be a few weeks of meditations, but then my computer crashed whilst I was midway through recording them. A lot of visualization techniques, not quite meditations, although in a few weeks I'm doing like a mindfulness body scan, which you can find a lot of this stuff anywhere. But actually, one of the things I say, and I mean, it's weird for me to think of my own voice as soothing, but a lot of people do say it. I'm just like, it's just this half Scouse thing. But yeah, it's like one of the things I say to someone is like, really, most mindfulness meditations, they all pretty much say the same thing. So just find one with a voice that you can get along with. Because if you're sat there and you think, and all you're thinking through that meditation is, God, I hate the way that guy says chair. It's like, oh, the way that woman like lengthens her S's. She's trying to be soothing, but she's just coming across. And it's like, and if that's what's happening in your meditation and that's what you're focusing on, you need a voice that you can get along with. So yeah, it's definitely something I want to do more of. I want to put them on the podcast, and again, I want to give them away for free. The audiobook, probably not so much. That'll probably be something I'll charge for, but I'll charge quite a small amount really but I'm going to I was thinking about this while I was running on Saturday. I was like, would I just do it as like an extra edition of the podcast each week? And I'm considering that, of doing it for free and like putting my regular episode out on a Wednesday and a Sunday, and then like on a Thursday or something, putting like a chapter of it. It's like, I think it's 20 odd chapters or something. So like half the year. It's like, I thought it might be quite nice. People who like it, they'd be waiting a little bit of time, because that was one thing I don't think I'd have finished that book if it wasn't for my mum wanting to know what happened next. And I was just like, because my mum and my wife were like my two biggest fans. In fact, my wife can be very blunt and to the point, actually. So I should have stood up and listened when she turned around and said, that's good. Because if I do something that's not good, oh my God, will she tell me? Which is cool. It wasn't cool when my mental health wasn't great, but it's cool now. But yeah, there's loads of stuff in the pipeline. It's just time. Yeah. I love doing the podcast. And I love I do love being right up and close in person with the microphone and stuff. Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time, Dave, so...
we'll go a couple of minutes over.
Okay, so a couple more questions I really would love to know is, what's your favourite book? And I'll go with the next one after this. What's your favourite book?
My favourite book from a self-help point of view is The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin, mainly because it helped me contextualise loads of things that I was already sort of thinking but didn't quite have a framework for them. I think that anyone who is interested in their own personal development, and particularly anyone who is a coach or a teacher or even a parent, should read it, because understanding, I don't use the word should lightly either, understanding about the four tendencies is actually, it helps get to the core with a lot of people so much quicker than like otherwise.
And who is one person that inspires you?
See, the weird thing about that is that every single person that inspires me, there are bits about them that I don't like. It might sound strange because, and this is the thing, is you don't have to agree with everything somebody says. I think right now, everyone's in this sort of black and white thinking where it's like, oh, if someone says something they don't like, it's like, well, I don't like that person anymore. And I'm totally prepared for the fact that I will say things that challenge people. I really like Tony Robbins, but I don't like all of what he does. I find him far too salesy, and yeah, obviously he's got like a half an island in Bali or wherever it is. But like, you know, that was his model of the world, and like that type of thing, he's got his ways of justifying that. But I find that to be far too much. I don't know. I just found it to be a little bit too salesy. I went to a 4-day event, and 2 half days of that event were like upsells.
Yeah,
the rest of the rest of the questions, the rest of the content was brilliant. But I just felt like for half day on the second day, half day on the fourth day, I was just being upsold to for an entire afternoon, and I didn't like that. So like that's why I don't like that about that. I mean, I love Gary Vee, but I think him pushing everyone to outwork everyone into the. I mean, he does promote sleep as well. I know there is that, but him pushing everyone to outwork everyone, it's useful until it's not. And that's the thing, is why I don't really outright say that any one person. It's like there's so many people that do inspire me. But I would say anyone that does inspire you, think critically about what they're saying, and take there's a great Bruce Lee quote that I love, which is, I'll butcher it, but it's like basically take the bits you like, drop the bits that you don't like, and add a little bit of your own. It's like, so if you are being inspired by somebody and they don't like something they say, then push it to one side, you know, drop that bit and just take the good stuff that you take from it. If there's something I said today that you didn't like, but there's loads of other stuff that you did like, take the stuff that you do like, because, you know, you cut your nose off to spite your own face if you drop it all on.
I absolutely love that, because I really like Gary Vee, but at the same time it gives me a bit of anxiety, because it's like, I know what you're saying is right, but not everyone has a huge team behind them to put all this content out. A lot of people are doing it themselves. So yeah, I do like Gary Vee, but I get what you're saying, is take stuff with a pinch of salt and take what you can and adapt it. Yeah, absolutely great. Okay, last question is, if anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way? And I'll put all the links in the comment.
I am Mindset by Dave everywhere. I'm most active. I'm finally got that all under one roof, because it was under loads of different names for a while. So facebook.com/Mindset by Dave, Instagram /Mindset by Dave, or @Mindset by Dave, Twitter, same. Twitter's my least used one, but I do go in and check my notifications occasionally and reply to things, but I don't tend to put too much content up there. Instagram, probably my most used one, and the place that I'm most active. And yeah, and also, am I allowed to mention my rival podcast?
You can do whatever you want, Dave. It's all about you.
And I also have a podcast called Master the Mind, Master Anything, with Dave Cottrell. But good luck on spelling my surname right, because I can't even do it half the time.
I follow your podcast, so I say, yeah, highly recommended.
Awesome.
Awesome, Dave. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers, Dave.